Before you start any kind of major construction project, there are a few things to think about before you start tearing walls down and have people get to work. The pre-construction process. So this starts with design. Now, if you live in an HOA, you may have to check with them to make sure that your concepts are going to fit in the HOA guidelines. Sometimes the HOA has specific rules set aside as far as paint colors, design aesthetics, and HOA is above the city on this. So if maybe the city will permit it, that doesn't necessarily mean your HOA will. So always check with your HOA. If that's all clear, you've got your design phase. This is where we talk about what you're going to be doing on the project. Are we doing a new entry, an addition, an ADU, and what do we want it to look like? So this might be inspiration photos. This is going to be talking about how you want the flow of the layout to go. This is the aesthetics of the project. So this is your design phase. Before we start putting anything on paper, submitting anything to the city, we need to come up with the concept of what we're doing here. Figure out exactly the scope of work. If you're working with a designer, they might give you a whole design packet, which then we can use that as we move to our next step, which is construction documents. So once we have our design figured out and we know this is what we're doing, this is what we want it to look like, this is the scope of the project, these are our inspiration photos, now we have to get this drawn up so that we can submit it to the city. So we take our design, which might be more of a simple design layout, not a construction document, architectural layout, but a design layout typically from the designers, or rendering. It could be a 3D rendering from your designers. And we take this, now we have the architect draw it out into a 2D form so that we can submit it to the city and to engineering. This is the stage when we create the construction documents, which involve a site plan, your Title 24 documents, your specs on your roofing, your water heater, utilities map. This is where we draw some of the details on the exterior and the interior, so you might have some elevation views. So this gives everybody an idea of what the project's gonna look like from a nuts and bolts perspective. Not just, oh, there's a pretty rendering, this is what we wanna do. Hey, city, we just wanna build this beautiful 3D rendering. They're not gonna let you just submit that to pass and get approved for your project. So you need official, professional construction documents that are created based off the design that we submit to the city. First, though, once we get our architectural drawings straight, that means all our documents in order. This is how we want the house to look. This is how we want the exterior facade. These are the openings, this is the floor plan, these are the windows, okay? Now, once you have all that stuff, that's when we send it to the engineer, and he makes his calculations based on the size of the window openings, the door openings, if it's a second story, all the structural stuff that needs to be accounted for. That's when the engineer looks at it. But he needs those drawings to do any of his work. And this will also be sent out for Title 24, which is a document that explains your energy usage and the ratings of the windows and the doors to determine how much energy you're using and losing. Some projects may require a civil engineer. That could be a grading plan, topography maps, hydrology report, in addition to geosoils report, stormwater map, all these documents that the city may require for your project depending on the complexity. Once you've got all your documents in order, that's when we submit to the city, in which the plans will go through various different departments in order to get checked off before we can start any work. So it'll go through the zoning department, it'll go through planning, it'll go through engineering, it'll go through building, it'll go through the fire. And so all these departments check various different aspects of your project. And once they get signed off by all of them, which is usually 2 to 3 months process depending on the city, and county here in San Diego takes even longer. It's about a 6-month wait. So in between your idea of let's do this project and okay, let's start actually doing construction can be anywhere from 6 months to 12 months depending on the project. I would say a couple months for design, drawings, engineering on smaller projects to 2 to 3 months at the city. And for larger projects, it could be 4 to 6 months for your design, architecture, engineering, and 4 to 6 months at the county before you're actually able to start your construction project. So keep in mind before you start your project that the pre-construction is going to take some time. Again, you're going to have your design phase where you're figuring everything out, what you want it to look like, some inspiration photos, what areas are we working on, what are we doing. Then, once that's finalized, now you take it into your construction documents, which when those are done, you send to engineering, you get your Title 24, and then we submit to the city, in which they may require certain things like grading plans, topography reports. You don't really know until you submit to the city. And you can do a little due diligence and email them beforehand, which I would advise. But understand that the pre-construction process does take time, and if you want to do a big project, just make sure that you've got some time set aside to get all this stuff done before you actually start. Take care.